Hello and welcome to our reception phonics parents evening. My name is Mrs. Hunter and I am the English lead for the Synergy Schools Federation. I'd like to start this evening with a quote. A love of reading is the biggest indicator of future academic success. This reminds us of the importance not just of teaching children to read, but also to love reading. Today, we are going to talk about phonics, but we always see phonics as the route into reading, and a love of reading is the ultimate goal of phonics teaching. How many times have you already read today? Well, you might be surprised. More than ever, we are surrounded by text, and reading is a vital skill which we just can't operate without. We want all of our children to become confident readers who can navigate the world of reading around them. Reading is a difficult skill. We are not wired to read naturally. It has to be something that is taught and learned, and that is why we use phonics. Our schools all use the Little Wandle Letters and Sounds Revised programme in order to teach our phonics. We selected this programme because we feel that it's really rigorous, that the resources are really interesting and engaging for our children, and we found that of all the phonics programmes that are on the market, that this was the best fit for our children. So what is phonics? Phonics is making connections between the sounds of our spoken words and the letters that are used to write them down. A phoneme is the smallest unit of sound within a word, whilst a grapheme is how we write that phoneme. So if the phoneme is the sound, the grapheme is the letter, it's how we write it. A digraph is two letters that make one sound, and a trigraph is three letters that make one sound. Some of this terminology can seem a little bit confusing at first, especially if it's not necessarily how you were taught to read when you were at school. But our children know no different. They are taught this from the second week of reception. So they use the terms phoneme and grapheme really, really confidently from day one. The most important thing when children are first learning to read is to be able to pronounce the phonemes correctly. It's really, really important that they do this because otherwise they can't then blend correctly. To see how we correctly pronounce the first phonemes that children learn in the first half term of school in autumn one, we've got a little video to demonstrate with somebody who is far cuter than me to show you how to pronounce the sounds as pure sounds.
Hello everyone, this is how we say our sounds. S, A, T, P, I, N, N, D, G, O, K, A, R, B, O.
Isn't he lovely? So it's really important that we say, pronounce the sounds in a pure way. So it's a s, not a s, and you're going to find out why in a moment. That's because when children sound out words, they then have to blend them back together. That's the process of reading. So, for example, if we look at the word snap, a child might recognize the phonemes and they might be able to see, read, and sound out snap. But the real skill is not just the recognition, it's then being able to put snap together and blend it as snap. That's how we read. Here's a little bit more about the importance of blending.
In phonics lessons, your child is taught to recognise the connections between the sounds in our spoken words, phonemes, and the letters that are used to write them down, graphemes. For example, they are taught that t is written like this, I is written like this, and N is written like this. When we read, we see these letters written down and we change them back into sounds, join them together and read tin. T, I, N, tin. Sounding out the graphemes in a word and blending them together is how your child is learning to read at school. We make sure we use pure sounds when we are sounding out and blending words. That means we don't say at the end of a letter. We say t, I, N, tin, not t, I, n, because that doesn't blend to say tin at all. You can check how to say the phonemes with pure sounds with our videos. There are 3 videos that cover all the phonemes your child will learn in reception. Thank you for listening and thank you for helping your child to learn to read.
So Little Wandle provides a real clear progression, of how to teach phonics. So we start from day one with s, then we move on to a and t, p, I, n. And once children have those 6 graphemes, they're already able to read a whole plethora of words from sat, pin, sit, tip, etc., which is really exciting for them to then realize what it's all about. We will make these grapheme information sheets available to parents because they're really useful. Not only can you see the grapheme and the mnemonic, so for example, an A is astronaut, which can sometimes help to give children a little cue if they're struggling to recognize the graphemes, but they also give you the pronunciation phrases, and they're really useful if children are finding it difficult to pronounce a phoneme. It just gives you a little bit of guidance on how you need to use your mouth or where you might need to place your tongue in order to make that sound correctly. And it also provides the formation phrase, which is how we write the grapheme. And again, that's really important because if children start off forming graphemes the wrong way by starting in the wrong place or by taking the pen off when they shouldn't, they're really, really tricky habits to break further down the line. So getting it right from day one is really important. And over time, what children will be learning in phonics lessons will become more complicated. The phonics lessons will also become longer. As there's more content, they learn more alternatives and more tricky words. And basically, they continue learning phonics until they can read. So that might be at the end of year 1, but that might not be until further through the school. It depends on each individual child, but we will continue with this Little Wandle progression until your child is a fluent reader. So the opposite, if you like, of blending is segmenting. So this is when we're learning to write. We actually start with the word. So if we look at the example that we had before, we had snap. If I wanted to write the word snap, I would need to segment the word. So I would need to sound it out. Snap. S-n-a-p. Segment it using our segmenting fingers. S-n-a-p. How many sounds? There are 4 sounds in snap. Now I need to write them down. Okay, what was the first sound in snap? S. Okay, what was the next one? S-n. Next sound is n. Write down n. S-n-a. A is the next sound. S-n-a. What was the last sound in snap? P. It's a p. That was 4 sounds. Have I written down 4 sounds? Snap. Blend it together. Snap. Yes, I have. I must have written the word correctly. However, some words are more difficult to spell, and these are our tricky words. And tricky words are where we can't use our phonics to help us to decode a word. We just have to know it. Unfortunately, not 100% of the English language is phonetically decodable. So there are some of these words where we just have to recognize them as a whole. And let's have a little look at how we do that now.
Almost all words in the English language can be worked out using the alphabetic code that children learn at school. This is made up of 44 sounds and includes sounds like a, b, k, and a, e, and I, as well as sh, ch, and air. Many of these sounds can be spelt in a few different ways, but some of the spellings are far more common than others. To get children reading quickly, we teach them the most common way each sound is spelt first. They will learn some of the more unusual ways of spelling sounds later in the Letters and Sounds programme. But there are just a few with unusual spellings that children need to read and write a lot, even in the early stages. Words like he, said, and was. We call these tricky words and teach them as we go along. When we teach tricky words, we show the children which bit of the word is the tricky part. Here's an example. Children learn the letter E makes the sound E because in most words it makes that sound. Think about the words fed, bed, read and shed. But the word we is a tricky word because the letter E is not making the sound that the children have been taught so far. E. In this word, the letter says E. So the word is we. Another tricky word is was. Both the middle and the final letters are tricky. This letter says O, and this letter says Z, so we read the word as was. We teach the most common tricky words first. These are the ones that children will often come across in their reading books. Your child will learn how to read and spell tricky words regularly in lessons, so they become familiar with them and can read and spell them confidently. If you find they are struggling to remember a certain tricky word, ask them to write on a post-it note and stick it where they will see it a lot. Keep asking them to read the word. If you need to, remind them of the tricky part. This will help them to remember it.
Okay, so after a couple of weeks of phonics teaching, children will start bringing home phonics books so they can practice their reading. In school, we read with the children 3 times a week. We read the same book 3 times, and that's because each time we read it, we have a different focus. We begin with the first read, which is a focus on decoding, sounding out and blending those words. The second read is a focus on prosody, which is all about using expression, responding to punctuation, which words to emphasize, bringing the words to life and making sure we don't read like robots. And the final read is working on comprehension and all those other reading skills, because it's one thing to be able to decode words and a sentence, but actually, what have we read? Do we understand what it means? And that's what we dive into in the third read. Children read it together in small groups with a trained teacher or a teaching assistant. At the end of the week, they'll then bring their phonics book home. The books are really closely matched to children's phonics level. And we use assessments, which we undertake every 6 weeks to make sure that your child's book matches their phonics ability. And that's really important to make sure that it's a book with just enough challenge, but not so much that it then can become demotivating. So by the time children's bring their books home to you, they should be pretty fluent. They should be pretty automatic in reading that the book and not have to sound out many of the words at all. That's brilliant because that means that there shouldn't be any sort of friction or avoiding sort of reading at home, because actually they can do it. We already know that they can do it. It's really just an opportunity to celebrate with you what they have been learning to do in school and what they've achieved. As well as bringing a phonics book home, they'll also bring a sharing book home, and that's a book for you to read to them. And it will be a wonderful high quality text, potentially a storybook, but it could be a non-fiction book or a poetry book. And that's just something for you guys to really just enjoy together. There are things that you can do, things that you can chat about, but the important thing is that it's just a wonderful bonding time where you're really nourishing that love of reading. So you will get a phonics book and also a sharing book. When you listen to children read their phonics books, hopefully they should be pretty automatic and confident by the time they get home. But if they can't read a word, then you can read it to them. Or you can help them using some of the strategies that we've looked at today, how to decode and how to blend. But if you're not so confident with that, that's okay. You can just read it to them. And then you can have a little chat about the book and just celebrate their success and what a wonderful little reader that you have. The shared book is the one for you to read, and for you to have that wonderful quality time just enjoying reading together, maybe at bedtime, but whenever works for you. And that's because one of the greatest gifts adults can give to their children is the ability to read, and is to read to them. So thank you so much. That is it for today. But what I will do is make some more videos throughout the school year to update you on what we're doing in our phonics learning. I realise there's an awful lot to get your head around, but we'll try and break it up into manageable chunks. Please remember that there's the Little Bundle website, which has some fantastic resources. Those pronunciation videos are all on there, but they're also on YouTube. And that your class teacher would always be, your child's class teacher would always be really happy to help you or to give you any support and advice on helping your child to read at home. Thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions at any time, and you don't maybe get the opportunity to stop by the gate and talk to your class teacher and you would like to email them to me, my name is Emily Hunter and my email address is e.hunter@synergyschools.co.uk, and you'll be very welcome to do so. Thanks again for watching this video. I really hope it was helpful. Bye bye.